Shut your mouth. You people don't belong here. The words cut through the packed federal courtroom like a blade through silk. Officer Cade Thornwell's face burns crimson as he glares at the black woman standing at the podium, her calm voice methodically dismantling everything he has spent 16 years building. You activists come in here lying about good cops, destroying families, ruining careers. His finger stabs the air toward her, trembling with rage that has been simmering for 5 days straight. 25 phones are already recording. The gallery holds its breath, but the woman at the podium doesn't flinch, doesn't step back, doesn't raise her voice even a fraction. Your unit demonstrates patterns of systematic— I said shut up. Cade Thornwell abandons his post by the side door. His boots thunder against marble as he storms toward her, 210 pounds of barely contained fury closing the distance in 5 quick strides. She continues speaking into the microphone with a composure that makes his blood boil hotter than any shouted insult ever could. The slap echoes like a gunshot. Her head snaps to the side. Wire-rimmed glasses fly off, clattering across the marble floor. The crack of palm against cheek reverberates through absolute silence. Know your place. Thornwell looms over her, breathing hard, every muscle tensed for whatever comes next. He expects tears. He expects fear. He expects this uppity woman to finally understand who holds the power in this room. What he gets instead freezes him mid-breath. She touches her cheek, slowly, almost thoughtfully. Then she bends to retrieve her glasses, never once breaking eye contact with him. When she straightens, something has shifted in her posture. Her shoulders square, her feet spread slightly wider. Her center of gravity drops perhaps 2 inches. It is a stance Cade Thornwell should recognize, would recognize, if he had ever served in the military instead of merely wearing a badge his grandfather, father, and brother wore before him. He raises his hand for a second blow. According to body cam footage, timestamp 14/32/17, Officer Thornwell badge number 472, case number 2024-3391. The next 3 seconds will change everything. Second 1. She catches his descending wrist with her left hand, stopping his swing mid-arc with a grip that feels like iron wrapped in velvet. Second 2. Her right palm drives upward into his solar plexus, hitting the nerve cluster with surgical precision that disrupts his diaphragm and short-circuits every aggressive impulse firing through his brain. Second 3. As Thornwell doubles over gasping, her elbow arcs upward, connecting with his jaw in a strike that switches off his consciousness like a light bulb. 210 pounds of muscle and bone hits the marble floor with a sickening thud. The courtroom erupts, screams, gasps, camera flashes strobing like lightning. Judge Ellery Crane's gavel pounds uselessly against the chaos, but the woman simply adjusts her glasses, steps back to the microphone, and continues in that same measured tone. As I was saying, Your Honor, systematic misconduct requires systematic reform. Cade Thornwell lies motionless on cold stone, his career ending exactly where his arrogance began. The video goes viral before paramedics even load him onto the stretcher. 50 million views in 6 hours. Hashtag Congresswoman knockout trends in 47 countries. News anchors interrupt regular programming. Social media explodes with hot takes, memes, and frame-by-frame analysis of those 3 devastating seconds. But that is only what the world sees. What they don't know, what will leave everyone speechless, is who this woman truly is, and why she was standing in that courtroom in the first place. If watching that officer assault a woman presenting evidence made your blood boil, you're not alone. But what happens next will shock you even more. This story exposes how the system protects its own, and what one woman did to tear it all down. Stay with us because the truth about her identity changes everything. The story actually begins 5 days earlier, on a Tuesday morning when Capital City thrums with tension thick enough to taste. Outside the federal courthouse, 2 crowds face each other across a line of bicycle barriers. One side waves signs reading, "Reform now and accountability for all." The other side hoists back the blue banners and thin blue line flags. Police officers in riot gear stand between them, faces hidden behind visors, batons held at the ready. Inside, the marble halls echo with footsteps of lawyers, activists, reporters, and curious citizens who lined up before dawn for a seat in courtroom 4B. Everyone knows these hearings could reshape American policing forever. Everyone wants to witness history. Judge Ellery Crane presides over proceedings with the stern efficiency of a woman who has seen too many cases devolve into circuses. 62 years old, silver hair pulled back in a severe bun, reading glasses perched on her nose. She tolerates no grandstanding, no emotional outbursts, no deviation from procedure. The witness currently at the podium appears to understand this perfectly. She wears a simple black suit, no jewelry, No pins or badges of office. Wire-rimmed glasses catch the fluorescent light as she shuffles through manila folders thick with evidence. Her voice carries clearly through the courtroom microphone, professional and precise. To everyone watching, she looks like exactly what her credentials claim. An expert witness on police reform. Perhaps a professor from some prestigious university. Perhaps a researcher who has spent years analyzing data most people never see. They have no idea she is a sitting member of Congress. Reverie Castellane keeps her identity hidden on purpose. She wants her evidence to speak for itself. She wants the data to be evaluated on its merits, not filtered through the lens of political affiliation or partisan assumption. The moment anyone in this room learns she is Congresswoman Castellane from District 7, everything changes. The evidence becomes ammunition. The statistics become talking points. The truth gets lost in the crossfire. So she presents herself as simply Miss Castellane, expert witness, nothing more. In the past 3 years, excessive force complaints have increased 43% in predominantly minority neighborhoods, she says, clicking to her next slide. The graph behind her shows a sharp upward trajectory that makes several officers in the gallery shift uncomfortably in their seats. By the side door, Officer Cade Thornwell watches with growing irritation. He was transferred here just last week from the 5th District. Officially, it was a lateral move. Unofficially, everyone knows it was disciplinary action disguised as a promotion. His supervisor told him he would be providing security for another one of those police misconduct hearings. Thornwell didn't bother reading the briefing materials. He figured it was the same old story. Activists and troublemakers trying to tear down everything his family has spent 3 generations building. His grandfather walked the beat in Capital City during the 1960s, back when being a cop meant something. His father made detective before taking a bullet during a drug bust in 1995. His brother died in the line of duty just 2 years ago, responding to a domestic call that went sideways. To Cade Thornwell, the badge isn't just a job. It is sacred family heritage. It is the only thing that gives his life meaning since his marriage fell apart and his kids stopped returning his calls. He studies the woman at the podium with contempt barely concealed behind his professional mask. Everything about her irritates him. The calm demeanor, the fancy charts and graphs, the way she speaks with absolute certainty about things she has never experienced. She wasn't there when Thornwell held his dying brother in his arms. She wasn't there when drug dealers shot his father in the spine. She wasn't there during any of the 47 incidents that generated complaints against him, incidents where he was simply doing his job, protecting citizens from criminals who would exploit any weakness, any hesitation, any moment of mercy. What does she know about real police work? What does any of them know? The woman continues her presentation, utterly unaware of the storm building 15 feet away. Statistical analysis reveals clear patterns of bias in enforcement, she explains, her laser pointer highlighting key data points. Certain units demonstrate significantly higher rates of civilian complaints, use of force incidents, and disciplinary actions compared to department averages. The gallery murmurs. Some nod in agreement. Others shake their heads in disgust. Thornwell's jaw tightens. His hands clench into fists at his sides. What he doesn't realize, what nobody in this courtroom knows, is that this woman isn't presenting random statistics cherry-picked to support some political agenda. Every number on her slides comes from federal investigations she personally initiated. Every case study represents real people whose lives were shattered by the very officers she is documenting. And several of those cases involve his unit specifically. Several involve him personally. The first hint that something is different about this witness comes during a brief recess on day 2. Thornwell corners Officer Bryce Donnelly from courthouse security near the water fountain. Who is that woman testifying about police misconduct? David shrugs. Some expert witness, professor, or researcher, or something. Why? She had access to my internal files, my body cam footage. How does some random academic get federal investigation materials? Maybe she's connected. David takes a long drink of water. You know how these hearings work. They bring in people with credentials, people who know people. Thornwell nods, satisfied with that explanation. In his mind, the woman represents everything wrong with modern America. Privileged elites who have never walked a real beat. Academics who study crime from the safety of their offices while real cops risk their lives every single day. He spends that evening researching online. He finds a few articles mentioning police reform expert Reverie Castellane, but he focuses only on comment sections calling her anti-cop and radical. He never notices the small print identifying her as Congresswoman Castellane. His rage filters out anything that doesn't confirm what he already believes. Day 3 brings fresh torment. She presents audio recordings from police radio chatter. Thornwell's own voice crackles through courtroom speakers, captured during a robbery response last year. Units responding to armed robbery. Suspects described as 3 black males, early 20s. Normal so far. Standard dispatch protocol. Then she plays the unedited version. 3 black males. Usual suspects doing usual suspect things. The courtroom tenses. Thornwell's casual racism broadcasts in high definition for everyone to hear. She advances to another recording. Thornwell and his partner discussing a traffic stop before approaching the vehicle. Another one driving while black. Let's see what we can find. Gallery members gasp. Some shake their heads. A woman in the front row covers her mouth with her hand. Thornwell's face turns purple. Those recordings were supposed to be confidential. Internal communications. How does this woman have access to things that should require federal subpoena power? Your Honor, he interrupts, unable to contain himself. Those recordings are taken completely out of context. Judge Crane's gavel cracks like a rifle shot. Officer Thornwell, you are out of order. You will maintain silence or you will be removed from this courtroom. The woman at the podium doesn't even glance at him. She simply advances to her next exhibit with that same infuriating composure. Day 4 escalates further. She presents systematic analysis showing Thornwell's unit targeting minority neighborhoods at rates 304% above district average. Her charts break down arrest patterns, complaint ratios, use of force statistics across every demographic category. Every number condemns his unit deeper. Statistical analysis reveals clear bias in enforcement patterns, she explains, her voice never rising above conversational level. Traffic stops in predominantly black neighborhoods occur at rates dramatically exceeding population demographics. When controlling for crime statistics, the disparity actually increases. Thornwell cannot stay quiet. That's because that's where the crime is. Everyone knows that. Judge Crane slams her gavel. Officer Thornwell, final warning. One more disruption and you will be removed from these proceedings. She's twisting statistics to fit her agenda. Bailiff, prepare to escort Officer Thornwell from my courtroom. 2 court officers move toward him, but Thornwell raises his hands in surrender. I'll control myself, Your Honor. Please, I apologize. Judge Crane studies him for a long moment. Her eyes miss nothing. She sees a man on the edge. A man whose entire worldview is crumbling under the weight of documented evidence. Last chance, officer. I will not warn you again. Thornwell returns to his post, burning with humiliation that tastes like acid in his throat. This unknown woman is systematically destroying everything he has worked for. His reputation, his unit's reputation, his belief that he has spent 16 years doing the right thing. And she does it all without ever raising her voice. That calm professionalism enrages him more than any shouted accusation ever could. Day 5 brings the nuclear option. She presents video evidence of Cade Thornwell planting evidence during a drug arrest 8 months ago. The body cam footage is crystal clear, professionally authenticated, timestamp visible in the corner of the frame. Thornwell approaches a vehicle during a routine traffic stop. The driver, a black man in his early 30s, sits calmly with hands visible on the steering wheel. His 3-year-old daughter babbles in a car seat behind him. License and registration. Yes, sir. Reaching for my glove compartment now. The driver moves slowly, telegraphing every motion, following perfect compliance protocol. He knows how to interact with police. He has been trained since childhood. But as Thornwell walks around to the passenger side of the vehicle, the camera catches something that makes the courtroom gasp. Thornwell reaches into his own pocket, pulls out a small plastic baggie containing white powder, and drops it onto the passenger seat. What's this? His recorded voice asks, pointing at the planted evidence with theatrical surprise. Officer, I don't know what that is. I've never seen it before. I swear to God. Step out of the vehicle. You're under arrest for possession of cocaine. The video continues. Thornwell handcuffs the terrified father while his daughter screams from her car seat, not understanding why strangers are hurting her daddy. Gallery members shout in outrage. Monster. Corrupt cop. How many others? Judge Crane pounds her gavel repeatedly, but the chaos refuses to subside. Order. Order in this courtroom. Thornwell watches his career end in real time. That arrest sent Marcus Webb to prison for 18 months. Cost him his job, his apartment, his custody rights. His daughter grew up without her father for a year and a half because Cade Thornwell needed to boost his drug arrest statistics. The woman at the podium lets the impact sink in before speaking again. This fabricated arrest resulted in conviction of an innocent man. Mr. Webb's daughter was 3 years old when her father was taken from her. She turned 5 before he came home. Thornwell cannot breathe. The walls close in. Every face in the courtroom looks at him with disgust, hatred, contempt. Even his fellow officers in the gallery won't meet his eyes. Your Honor, she's lying. His voice cracks with desperation. That video is edited. It's manufactured evidence. Federal forensic analysis confirms complete authenticity. The woman responds, still not looking at him. No editing. No manipulation. Chain of custody documented from original recording to this presentation. Something breaks inside Cade Thornwell. Something that has been straining for 5 days finally snaps. This woman has painted him as a monster, a racist, a criminal who violated everything his badge is supposed to represent. She has made him the villain in his own story, and she has done it with evidence so damning that even he cannot deny what he sees on that screen. You don't know anything about what it's like out there. Officer Thornwell, sit down immediately. You activists come in here with your lies and your statistics trying to destroy good men who risk their lives every single day. He abandons his post. His boots thunder against marble. 25 phones start recording what happens next. She doesn't move, doesn't step back, doesn't show even a flicker of fear. Your unit demonstrates patterns of, I said shut up, the slap, the silence, the transformation, and 3 seconds that will generate 50 million views before midnight. Facing injustice shouldn't mean facing it alone. Legal Shield connects you with qualified attorneys for document review, legal consultation, and representation, all for just $24.95 monthly. Whether it's workplace discrimination, wrongful accusations, or knowing your rights during police encounters, Legal Shield puts legal protection in your pocket. Because everyone deserves access to justice. Start your free trial at LegalShield.com/protection today. The celebration doesn't last long. By Thursday morning, the narrative has already begun to shift. Cade Thornwell lies in a hospital bed wearing a cervical collar, giving interviews to sympathetic news anchors who frame their questions with careful concern. Officer Thornwell, can you walk us through what happened in that courtroom? He winces, touching his jaw gingerly, sells the pain with the skill of a man who has lied under oath more times than he can count. I was just trying to maintain order. The witness was making inflammatory statements, disrupting proceedings. When I attempted to guide her back to appropriate behavior, she attacked me with what I can only describe as military-level violence. The interviewer nods sympathetically. Can you describe her response? She grabbed my wrist and started hitting me. Everything went black. Next thing I remember, paramedics were checking my pulse on the courtroom floor. He pauses, letting manufactured emotion crack his voice. I have children, you know. They saw their father knocked unconscious on national television by someone who is supposed to represent justice and fairness. The neck brace becomes his prop for every appearance. Medical experts privately note that his injuries, a mild concussion and some jaw bruising, require no prescription medication stronger than aspirin. But on camera, Thornwell moves like a man who barely survived a near-death experience. District Attorney Judson Blackwell holds a press conference on the courthouse steps where, just days ago, protesters demanded police accountability. Congresswoman Castellane may claim self-defense, but the evidence tells a different story. Cameras flash. Reporters lean forward. She used military-level violence against Officer Thornwell, who was attempting to maintain courtroom order. Under federal law, her hands are registered as deadly weapons due to her military training. She had options. She could have called for help. She could have stepped back. She could have used verbal de-escalation. Blackwell pauses for effect. Instead, she chose brutality. He plays the viral video in slow motion, frame by frame. Officer Thornwell placed his hand on Ms. Castellane's shoulder, a standard restraint technique, nothing aggressive. Her response was immediate, disproportionate, and criminal. The charges come down like hammer blows: assault and battery on a police officer, assault on a federal employee, disturbing the peace in a federal courthouse. Each carries potential prison time. Combined, they add up to 5 years in federal custody. Conservative media outlets seize the prosecutorial momentum with barely concealed glee. Violent congresswoman attacks officer doing his job. Military training makes politicians' response dangerous. Should elected officials be allowed to assault law enforcement without consequences? Liberal outlets push back, but their defense sounds hollow even to sympathetic ears. She was protecting herself. He attacked first. The video clearly shows. But context matters. Narrative matters. And Judson Blackwell understands narrative better than almost anyone in Capital City. He is 44 years old, ambitious, calculating. 12 years as a federal prosecutor have taught him exactly which cases make careers and which cases end them. This one, handled correctly, will catapult him to state attorney general within 5 years. Reverie Castellane finds herself isolated in ways she never anticipated. Congressional leadership requests a meeting in a secure conference room on Capitol Hill. 5 colleagues sit across from her, faces carefully neutral. Reverie, we support you. We believe you. But given the current climate, you want me to step back from the police reform bill. The senior congressman shifts uncomfortably, just until this legal matter is resolved. It's not about guilt or innocence. It's about optics. Optics. Reverie studies each face in turn. These are people who stood beside her at press conferences, people who praised her courage when she launched the federal investigation, people who promised to have her back no matter what. None of them will meet her eyes. Her approval ratings tell the story in brutal numbers. 74% support before the incident, 31% after, a 43-point drop in 72 hours. Police unions organize protests outside her district office. First they attack our budgets, then our reputations. Now they're physically assaulting officers. Union President Harold Vance shouts into a megaphone while cameras broadcast his outrage to millions. This woman represents everything wrong with anti-police sentiment in America. Even the moderate voices that should defend her hedge their bets. Sable Kensington, chair of the City Police Board, appears on Sunday morning talk shows with carefully calibrated statements. I believe in due process for everyone. That's what makes our system work. She pauses, letting viewers fill in the implications themselves. But violence is never the answer, even against perceived injustice. The word perceived does all the heavy lifting. It transforms documented assault into matter of interpretation. It suggests that maybe, just maybe, Thornwell's slap wasn't really that bad. It implies that Reverie overreacted, that her military training made her dangerous, that she should have simply accepted the blow and filed a complaint through proper channels. The message is clear. A black woman who fights back is more threatening than a white cop who attacks. Reverie receives the news of formal charges while reviewing case files in her congressional office. Thessaly Vance, her chief of staff, delivers the information with a face carefully stripped of emotion. Blackwell filed this morning. Arraignment is scheduled for next week. Thessaly is 36 years old, fiercely loyal, and one of perhaps 3 people in Washington who knows the full scope of what Reverie has been planning for the past 2 years. She served as a paralegal in the Navy JAG Corps before transitioning to political work. She understands legal strategy the way most people understand breathing. You need to hire defense counsel immediately. I've compiled a list of the top criminal defense attorneys in the district. Any of them would take this case pro bono for the publicity alone. Reverie doesn't look up from her files. No, Reverie, this is federal court, not a congressional hearing. They want to put you in prison. I know exactly what they want. She closes the folder, finally meeting Thessaly's worried gaze. Her eyes carry a weight that makes her chief of staff's breath catch. If I let expensive lawyers fight this battle for me, I'm admitting that the system works for people with resources. I'm telling every woman who ever fought back against an attacker that she'd better have a legal team on retainer or she'll end up in a cell. This is different. You're a congresswoman. You have responsibilities? Exactly. I have responsibilities. To every person watching this case wondering if self-defense is still legal in America. To every woman who has been told to accept violence because fighting back makes her the criminal. Thessaly sits down heavily. You're going to represent yourself. The announcement hits the news cycle like a bomb. Congresswoman Castellane to serve as own defense counsel. Legal experts call it suicide. Media pundits question her judgment, her mental state, her fitness for office. But inside her office, surrounded by law books and case files, Reverie Castellane allows herself a small smile. They have no idea what they're dealing with. They don't know about the 8 years she spent in the United States Navy before entering politics. They don't know she rose to the rank of lieutenant commander. They don't know she served in the Judge Advocate General's Corps, prosecuting courts-martial for everything from desertion to war crimes. 150 cases, 150 convictions. They don't know she also served as military police commander during 2 tours in Afghanistan, that she earned a Bronze Star with V device for valor under fire, that she can disassemble, clean, and reassemble an M16 rifle in under 60 seconds, and that the self-defense techniques she used on Thornwell represent the most restrained response in her considerable arsenal. They see a politician. They see an activist. They see a black woman who got lucky with 1 punch. They have no idea they're looking at a weapon. Pretrial discovery becomes a battlefield. Reverie's requests for evidence reveal exactly how much the system wants to protect its own. Every document requires multiple filings. Every piece of footage comes redacted or delayed. Internal Affairs suddenly cannot locate files they have maintained for years. The missing body cam footage is particularly telling. Thornwell wore his body camera throughout the incident. Department policy requires 24-hour recording during all official duties. But when Reverie's team requests the complete footage from that day, they receive only partial files. 10 minutes are missing. The 10 minutes immediately before Thornwell entered the courtroom. Technical difficulties with storage servers, Internal Affairs explains. Corruption in the digital archive. We're working to recover the data. Thessaly traces the excuse chain. Deputy Director Quinlan Marsh signed off on the corruption report. When she digs deeper, she discovers something that makes her blood run cold. Marsh's wife is the niece of Police Union President Harold Vance, the same Harold Vance currently organizing protests outside Revery's office. The sabotage is coordinated. Other evidence trickles in with suspicious selectivity. Thornwell's personnel file arrives heavily redacted. His disciplinary history, the 47 complaints Revery documented in her presentation, somehow shrinks to 12 when filtered through Internal Affairs review. They're cooking the books, Thessaly reports during a late-night strategy session. Marsh is delaying everything he can, losing documents, claiming technical problems. And I found something else. Metadata on some prosecution exhibits shows they were created after charges were filed. They're manufacturing evidence. Revery absorbs this information without surprise. She expected nothing less. The system protecting its own is not a bug. It is the primary feature. File a motion to authenticate all prosecution documents. Force forensic examination of every piece of evidence they want to introduce. That will delay the trial by weeks. Good. More time for us to dig. And dig they do. Ren Hollister, an investigative reporter with the Capital Gazette, who has spent 15 years documenting police corruption, reaches out through back channels. She has sources inside the department. Sources who are tired of watching bad cops protected by bureaucratic walls. Through Hollister's contacts, Revery obtains documents that Blackwell tried to suppress. The complete disciplinary record. 47 excessive force complaints over 15 years. Internal investigations that were mysteriously closed without action. Settlement payments totaling $1.2 million to Thornwell's victims, all paid quietly from city funds, all requiring non-disclosure agreements. One settlement catches her attention. Marcus Webb, the father Thornwell framed with planted evidence. The city paid him $340,000 to go away. His daughter was almost 5 by the time he got out of prison. But the most damaging discovery comes from Thornwell's own fingers. Social media posts, deleted but recovered through digital forensics, show Thornwell calling Revery a lying activist before the incident, promising his friends he would handle the situation, bragging about how he knew how to deal with troublemakers. Premeditation. Documented in his own words. Revery compiles her evidence with the methodical precision that made her legendary in Navy courtrooms. Every document cataloged, every timestamp verified, every chain of custody documented beyond any possible challenge. Blackwell has no idea what's coming. Stories like this remind us why speaking truth to power matters. Every like, every share, every subscription helps amplify voices that the system tries to silence. If you believe accountability should apply to everyone regardless of badge or position, hit that subscribe button and join millions standing for justice. The trial begins on a Monday morning that feels more like a media circus than a legal proceeding. Television trucks line the streets outside the federal courthouse. Protesters from both sides have grown larger, louder, more aggressive. Police in riot gear form human barriers between Reform Now signs and back the blue flags. Inside, Courtroom 4B is standing room only. Every major network has camera crews positioned for maximum coverage. Legal analysts fill reserved seats, ready to provide expert commentary on a case that has become a referendum on everything from police accountability to women's rights to political violence. Jury selection takes 3 days. Revery participates directly, questioning each potential juror with the skill of someone who has done this more times than most lawyers will in their entire careers. She watches their body language, studies their micro-expressions, eliminates anyone whose bias seems insurmountable. The final panel consists of 12 citizens, 8 women, 4 men, 6 white, 4 black, 2 Hispanic. A cross-section of America that will decide whether self-defense is still legal when the attacker wears a badge. District Attorney Judson Blackwell delivers his opening statement with the confidence of a man who believes victory is inevitable. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the evidence in this case is straightforward. He gestures toward Revery, sitting alone at the defense table. Congresswoman Castellane used deadly force against Officer Thornwell. The law is clear. Her response was excessive, disproportionate, and criminal. He plays the viral video on the courtroom's large screen. Thornwell's unconscious body hitting marble loops 3 times in slow motion. 3 seconds of brutal violence. 3 seconds that could have been avoided if the defendant had simply asked for help, called for the bailiff, stepped away from the confrontation. He turns to face the jury directly. Instead, she chose to deploy military combat techniques against a law enforcement officer who was attempting to maintain order in a federal courtroom. Whatever you think of Officer Thornwell's conduct, whatever you believe about police reform or racial justice or any other political issue, one fact remains undeniable. Reverie Castellane is not above the law, and the law says what she did was assault. Blackwell sits down with the satisfied expression of a poker player holding a royal flush. Reverie rises from the defense table. She wears the same simple black suit she wore during her testimony. No jewelry, no pins, nothing to identify her as anything other than what the prosecution has painted her. A politician who lost her temper and hurt a police officer. She stands alone. No legal team flanks her. No expensive consultants whisper strategy in her ear. Just one woman against the full weight of the federal justice system. The gallery shifts uncomfortably. Several jurors exchange glances. Members of the jury. Her voice carries clearly, professionally, exactly as it did when she was presenting evidence of police misconduct. The same voice that made Cade Thornwell lose control. I'm going to prove to you that I used minimum necessary force to stop an ongoing assault. But more importantly, I'm going to show you why Officer Thornwell attacked me. And I'm going to prove that what happened in this courtroom was not an accident, not a moment of passion, not an officer trying to maintain order. She pauses, letting the silence build. It was premeditated. It was coordinated. And it was designed to silence the evidence I was presenting. Evidence that threatens not just Officer Thornwell, but an entire network of corruption that extends far beyond one man's career. Blackwell objects. Your Honor, defense counsel is making inflammatory accusations without foundation. Judge Crane, who has been reassigned to this case after the original incident, considers carefully. I'll allow some latitude in opening statements, but Ms. Castellane, you will need to support these claims with evidence. I intend to, Your Honor. Reverie turns back to the jury. By the time this trial ends, you will know exactly who Officer Cade Thornwell is. You will know what he's done. You will know who protected him. And you will understand why a decorated military veteran with 2 Bronze Stars chose to defend herself instead of waiting for a system that has failed victims like her for generations. She returns to her seat with the same measured composure that has defined her throughout this ordeal. The prosecution's case unfolds over 3 days. Medical experts testify about Thornwell's injuries. Mild concussion, jaw contusion, possible long-term cognitive effects. Under cross-examination, they admit that Thornwell required no prescription pain medication and was released from the hospital within 4 hours. Use of force experts hired by the prosecution argue that Reverie's response was disproportionate. She had options, one explains. She could have retreated. She could have called for assistance. She could have used verbal de-escalation techniques. Reverie's cross-examination is surgical. You testified that I had options. Let's examine those options. When someone slaps you across the face hard enough to knock off your glasses, how many seconds do you have to call for help before the second blow lands? The expert hesitates. That would depend on ballpark figure. 1 second, 2, 5, perhaps 2 to 3 seconds in most scenarios. 2 to 3 seconds. She nods thoughtfully. And in those 2 to 3 seconds, while my attacker, who outweighs me by approximately 80 pounds, is raising his hand for a second strike, what exactly should I have shouted? The expert has no answer. Thornwell himself takes the stand wearing his dress uniform. He moves with careful stiffness, occasionally touching his jaw as if pain still lingers. The neck brace is gone, but he has mastered the art of wincing at strategic moments. Blackwell guides him through sympathetic testimony. I was providing courtroom security when the witness began making inflammatory statements about police officers. His voice carries rehearsed emotion. I approached to restore order. When I attempted to guide her back to appropriate behavior, she attacked me with what I can only describe as military-level violence. What happened next? Everything went black. I woke up on the floor with paramedics checking my vital signs. How has this incident affected your life? Thornwell's voice cracks on cue. My children saw their father beaten unconscious on national television. My marriage, which was already struggling, fell apart completely. I've had to move twice because protesters keep finding my address. I can't sleep. I have nightmares. The jury listens with mixed expressions. Some appear sympathetic. Others look skeptical. No further questions, Blackwell announces with satisfaction. Judge Crane turns to the defense table. Ms. Castellane? Reverie rises slowly. She carries a thick folder that she has not opened throughout the prosecution's case. The folder that contains everything she has been building for 2 years. She approaches the witness stand with quiet intensity. Something predatory lurks beneath her professional demeanor. Officer Thornwell, you testified that you gently placed your hand on my shoulder to guide me back to appropriate behavior. That's correct. She activates the courtroom video system. The viral footage appears on every screen. Let's examine that claim together. The video plays in slow motion. Thornwell's open palm connects with her face with obvious documented force. The crack of impact echoes through speakers. Does this look gentle to you, Officer Thornwell? He shifts uncomfortably. The camera angle is misleading. So you're claiming this video, authenticated by FBI forensic specialists, examined by 3 independent laboratories, is somehow inaccurate. Camera angles can be deceptive. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows that. She lets the phrase hang in the air before moving on. Officer Thornwell, how many excessive force complaints have you received during your 16-year career? Blackwell half rises. Relevance, Your Honor. Your Honor, Officer Thornwell's pattern of behavior is directly relevant to his credibility and to the circumstances that led to this incident. Judge Crane considers. I'll allow it. Answer the question, officer. Thornwell hesitates. A few. It comes with the job. A few. Reverie opens her folder for the first time. According to records obtained through federal subpoena, you have accumulated 47 complaints, 47 separate incidents where citizens accused you of using excessive force. Is that correct? Many of those were unfounded. Many were unfounded. But how many resulted in formal disciplinary action? Thornwell's lawyer, seated in the gallery, makes frantic gestures. Don't answer that. Too late. 12 sustained complaints, Officer Thornwell. 12 times your own department found sufficient evidence to discipline you. Yet you remained on active duty. She flips to another document. And during those 16 years, the city paid out $1.2 million in settlement payments to your victims. Taxpayer money, used to make your problems disappear. Objection. Your Honor, this is character assassination, not cross-examination. Your Honor, Officer Thornwell's documented history of violence is directly relevant to who was the actual aggressor in this incident. I'll allow limited questioning on this topic. But move along, Ms. Castellane. Reverie nods. She has planted what she needs. Officer Thornwell, let's talk about what you said during this incident. You testified that you approached to restore order. But according to audio captured by 25 recording devices, your exact words were, and I quote, "Shut your mouth. You people don't belong here." She lets those words hang in the air. Who are you people, Officer Thornwell? His composure cracks slightly. I meant activists, troublemakers, people who don't respect law enforcement. She advances to her next exhibit. An audio file plays through courtroom speakers. Thornwell's voice, unmistakable, recorded during a traffic stop 2 years earlier. Another one driving while black. Let's see what we can find. The jury shifts. Several members exchange glances. Another recording plays. Thornwell talking to fellow officers. Sometimes these people need to be reminded who's really in charge. You people. These people. Black people. She faces him directly. That's who you meant, isn't it, Officer Thornwell? That's not what You attacked me because you couldn't tolerate a black woman presenting evidence of your misconduct. You assumed I was powerless because of what I look like. You assumed you could silence me with violence because that's what you've been doing to people who look like me for 16 years. Thornwell's face turns red. The mask slips. For a moment, the real Cade Thornwell surfaces, the one who has been hiding behind victim narratives and neck braces. You people always play the race card. You got your position because of affirmative action, not because you earned it. Everything handed to you while real Americans work for what they have. The courtroom goes silent. Several jurors sit back in their chairs. One elderly black woman on the jury closes her eyes and shakes her head slowly. Reverie stands perfectly still. Her voice remains calm, controlled, professional. No further questions, Your Honor. Thornwell realizes what he just said. His lawyer has his head in his hands. Blackwell stares at the ceiling as if praying for divine intervention. The prosecution's star witness just torpedoed their entire case on national television. But Reverie is not finished. She is just getting started. The aftermath of Thornwell's outburst sends shockwaves through the prosecution's strategy. Judson Blackwell requests an emergency recess, his face ashen as he huddles with his team in the hallway outside courtroom 4B. Through the glass doors, reporters can see him gesturing frantically, his carefully constructed narrative crumbling around him. Inside the courtroom, Reverie remains at the defense table, organizing her documents with the same methodical precision she has displayed throughout. Thessaly Vance sits in the gallery directly behind her, close enough to pass notes if needed. That was masterful, Thessaly whispers during the brief break. He destroyed himself on the stand. Reverie does not smile, does not celebrate. Her eyes remain fixed on the folder in front of her, the one containing evidence she has not yet revealed. He destroyed himself on one front, but Blackwell still has institutional support. Marsh is still suppressing evidence. Graves is still protecting the network. We have not won anything yet. The recess extends from 15 minutes to 45. When proceedings resume, Blackwell's demeanor has shifted from confident aggression to damage control. Your Honor, the prosecution requests a continuance to reassess our case in light of new developments. Judge Crane's expression could freeze nitrogen. Mr. Blackwell, you have had months to prepare for this trial. The defense has been ready to proceed since day one. Your request is denied. But Your Honor, denied, Mr. Blackwell. We will continue with the defense's case. Mr. Castellane, call your first witness. Reverie rises. The defense calls Officer Nave Calloway. The name ripples through the courtroom like a stone dropped in still water. Thornwell, still seated in the witness area waiting to be formally excused, goes rigid. His face drains of color so quickly that the bailiff takes an instinctive step toward him. Neve Calloway is 29 years old, 7 years on the force, assigned to Thornwell's unit for the past 3. She walks to the witness stand with the careful gait of someone who knows she is about to detonate her own career. She wears her dress uniform, medals polished, badge gleaming. But her hands tremble slightly as she places them on the Bible. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Her voice cracks on the second word. Reverie approaches with none of the predatory intensity she showed during Thornwell's cross-examination. Her demeanor is almost gentle, almost protective. Officer Calloway, how long have you served in the Capital City Police Department? 7 years. And during that time, have you worked directly with Officer Cade Thornwell? For the past 3 years, yes. Same unit, same shift most of the time. In your experience working alongside Officer Thornwell, have you ever witnessed conduct that concerned you? Blackwell rises. Objection. Vague and calls for speculation. I'll rephrase. Officer Calloway, did you witness the events leading up to the incident on March 15th of this year? Calloway's eyes flick to Thornwell. He stares at her with an expression that promises consequences. She looks away quickly. Yes. I was assigned to courthouse security that day. Same as Officer Thornwell. Can you describe what you observed before the incident in courtroom 4B? The young officer takes a shaky breath. The night before the hearing, there was a gathering, off-duty, at Mahoney's Bar on 5th Street. Several officers from our unit attended. Officer Thornwell was there. Was there discussion about the upcoming hearing? Yes. Can you tell the jury what was discussed? Calloway's voice drops. Thornwell said, and these are his exact words. That woman needs to be taught a lesson about respect. The gallery stirs. Several jurors lean forward. Did Officer Thornwell elaborate on what he meant by that statement? He said he knew how to handle activists. Said he had done it before and would do it again. He said people like her think they can come into our house and talk about us, and that was not going to happen. Not on his watch. Blackwell objects again. Your Honor, this is hearsay. Your Honor, Officer Calloway has direct personal knowledge of statements made by Officer Thornwell. She was present when they were made. This is not hearsay, it is eyewitness testimony. Judge Crane considers. Overruled. The witness may continue. Reverie presses forward. Was anyone else present during this conversation? Deputy Chief Larkin Graves was there for part of it. The name lands like a grenade. Larkin Graves, 25-year veteran, third in command of the entire department, Thornwell's mentor and protector. Did Deputy Chief Graves respond to Officer Thornwell's statements? Calloway nods slowly. He told Thornwell to be careful but effective. Those were his exact words. Careful but effective. The implication is unmistakable. The third highest ranking officer in Capital City's police department gave tacit approval to whatever Thornwell was planning. Reverie lets the silence stretch before her next question. Officer Calloway, are you aware of any body cam footage from March 15th that has not been provided to the defense? The young officer's face tightens. Yes. Can you explain? There is footage from the hallway outside courtroom 4B, 10 minutes before the incident. Officer Thornwell's body cam was recording the entire time. I know because I saw him check it before we entered the building. And what happened to that footage? It was reported as corrupted. Technical difficulties with storage servers. That is what the official report says. But you have reason to believe otherwise? Calloway looks directly at the jury for the first time. I was in the evidence room 3 days after the incident. I overheard Deputy Director Quinlan Marsh on the phone. He said, and I quote, "Make sure those 10 minutes stay buried. The last thing we need is video of him practicing." The courtroom erupts. Practicing, Reverie repeats over the chaos. Officer Thornwell was practicing what exactly? Objection. Speculation. Withdrawn. Officer Calloway, in your observation of Officer Thornwell that morning, did you notice anything unusual about his behavior? Calloway's voice steadies. She has made her choice. There is no going back now. I saw him in the men's room before we entered the courthouse. The door was partially open. He was standing in front of the mirror. He was practicing the motion, the slap, over and over, getting the angle right. Several jurors gasp audibly. One woman covers her mouth with her hand. Thornwell surges to his feet. She is lying. She is a traitor and a liar. They got to her. They paid her off. Officer Thornwell, sit down immediately, Judge Crane commands. This is a setup. This whole thing is a setup. Bailiff, restrain Officer Thornwell if he cannot control himself. Two court officers move toward him. Thornwell's lawyer grabs his arm, whispering urgently. After a long moment, Thornwell sits, but his eyes never leave Calloway. The hatred in them is palpable. Reverie continues as if the interruption never occurred. Officer Calloway, why are you coming forward with this information now? The young woman's composure finally cracks. Tears stream down her face, but her voice remains steady. Because I became a police officer to help people, to protect people, not to cover up for bullies, not to watch innocent citizens get framed and beaten and terrorized while good cops stay silent because they are afraid of what will happen if they speak up. She wipes her eyes with the back of her hand. I cannot sleep anymore. I cannot look at my badge without feeling sick. I know what coming forward means for my career. I know I will probably never work in law enforcement again, but I cannot stay silent. Not anymore. Not after what I saw. The jury watches her with expressions ranging from sympathy to profound respect. Whatever doubts they might have harbored about Reverie's self-defense claim are evaporating in real time. No further questions, Your Honor. Blackwell approaches for cross-examination, but his heart is clearly not in it. Every question he asks only reinforces Calloway's credibility. Every attempt to paint her as a disgruntled employee backfires spectacularly. When he finally gives up and returns to the prosecution table, the damage is catastrophic. Your Honor, Reverie announces. At this time, the defense would like to present Exhibits 47 through 52, documents previously sealed by federal order, now released for this proceeding pursuant to motion granted last week. Judge Crane examines the documents Reverie places before her. The judge's eyes widen almost imperceptibly. Counselor, is this what I think it is? Yes, Your Honor. Blackwell demands to see the exhibits. As he reads, his face undergoes a remarkable transformation. Confidence to confusion to comprehension to absolute horror. Your Honor, I need a recess. I need to consult with. Denied. Ms. Castellane, please proceed. Reverie turns to face the jury. What comes next is the moment she has been building toward for 2 years. You're about to witness the moment that made prosecutors drop their jaws and defense attorneys scramble for the exits. The revelation coming next isn't just surprising. It's the kind of twist that changes how you see everything that came before. Trust us, you don't want to miss what happens when her true credentials are revealed. Members of the jury, she removes her glasses, straightens to her full height. The transformation is subtle but unmistakable. Academic demeanor falls away. What remains is something harder, something forged in places most civilians cannot imagine. My name is Reverie Castellane. You know me as Congresswoman from District 7, but that is not all I am. She moves to the center of the courtroom, commanding attention without raising her voice. Before I entered politics, I served 8 years in the United States Navy. My final rank was Lieutenant Commander. I was assigned to the Judge Advocate General's Corps. Murmurs ripple through the gallery. JAG. She was a military lawyer. During my service, I prosecuted over 150 courts-martial. War crimes, assault, murder, dereliction of duty. I questioned witnesses under fire, literal fire, in combat zones where the enemy did not recognize the Geneva Convention and did not care about legal procedure. She lets that sink in. I also served as military police commander during 2 deployments to Afghanistan. I earned a Bronze Star with V Device for Valor after leading my unit through an ambush that lasted 6 hours and left 3 of my people wounded. The document she presents shows her official Navy service record, medals, commendations, combat deployments, JAG credentials authenticated by the Department of Defense. Thornwell's face has gone gray. He stares at her as if seeing a ghost. The woman he slapped, the woman he assumed was a powerless activist he could intimidate with violence, is a decorated combat veteran with more real-world experience than he will accumulate in 3 lifetimes. The military-level violence the prosecution described, Reverie continues, her voice cutting like a blade, was restraint. I could have killed Officer Thornwell in under 2 seconds. I was trained to do exactly that by the United States Marine Corps and the Naval Criminal Investigative Service. I chose not to. She turns to face Thornwell directly. I used the minimum force necessary to stop an ongoing assault. Block, disable, neutralize, textbook defensive technique. Exactly as I was trained by the same government that trained Officer Thornwell to maintain order. The difference is that I actually followed my training. He abandoned his. Blackwell rises weakly. Your Honor, this is all very impressive, but it does not change the fundamental facts of the case. Reverie pivots smoothly. Actually, Mr. Blackwell, it changes everything, because I have not told you the most important part yet. She returns to the defense table and retrieves a final folder. This one is thicker than the others. It bears federal classification markings that make several people in the gallery sit up straighter. For the past 2 years, I have been working with the FBI Civil Rights Division on a pattern or practice investigation into systematic civil rights violations within the Capital City Police Department. The courtroom goes absolutely silent. Officer Cade Thornwell is not an isolated case of one bad apple. He is one of 23 officers identified as part of a coordinated network of abuse, evidence tampering, and cover-ups that extends from patrol officers to senior leadership. She presents the document, a list of names. 23 names. Thornwell near the top, Quinlan Marsh in the middle, Larkin Graves near the bottom. This is why Officer Thornwell attacked me. Not because I was disrupting courtroom proceedings. Not because I was an activist who needed to learn her place. He attacked me because I was about to name him in a federal indictment. She turns to face Thornwell one final time. You did not assault a random expert witness. You assaulted the lead consultant on a federal investigation that is about to destroy your entire network. You handed us video evidence of your premeditated violence. You confirmed every accusation I was making with your own actions. Thornwell lunges to his feet. You set me up. You knew I would lose control. You manipulated the whole situation. The admission hangs in the air like poison gas. Judge Crane's voice cuts through the chaos. Officer Thornwell, did you just admit that you had foreknowledge of attacking the defendant? Silence. Answer the question, officer. Thornwell's lawyer is on his feet trying to reach his client, but it is too late. The words cannot be unspoken. I want a lawyer, Thornwell finally manages. You have a lawyer, Judge Crane observes dryly. He is standing right there. And you just confessed to premeditated assault on national television. Reverie allows herself one small moment of satisfaction before returning to professional mode. Your Honor, the defense rests. The closing arguments are almost anticlimactic. Blackwell delivers a half-hearted summary of the prosecution's case, but his heart is not in it. The evidence has buried him. The testimony has buried him. Thornwell's own words have buried him. He speaks for 12 minutes. It feels like an obituary for his career ambitions. Reverie rises for the final time. Members of the jury. She stands before them with quiet authority. This case was never really about me. It was never about one slap in a courtroom, however shocking that moment appeared. This case is about whether the system will protect those who abuse their power, whether a badge grants immunity from consequences, whether self-defense is only legal when the victim is the right color, the right gender, the right level of social acceptability. She gestures toward the evidence exhibits stacked before the jury. Officer Thornwell has 47 complaints of excessive force, 12 sustained disciplinary actions, $1.2 million in settlements paid by taxpayers to make his victims go away, video evidence of him planting drugs on an innocent father, audio recordings of racist comments made while wearing the uniform that is supposed to represent equal justice for all. And when confronted with this evidence, his response was violence. His response was to slap a woman across the face in front of 25 cameras because he assumed she was powerless, because he assumed she would not fight back, because 3 generations of badge-protected immunity taught him that people like me exist to be controlled, not respected. Her voice drops to barely above a whisper, but every word carries to the farthest corner of the silent courtroom. I fought back. I defended myself with the skills my country taught me to protect its interests abroad. And now the same system that trained me wants to imprison me for using that training to protect my own body from assault. She faces the jury directly. Self-defense is not a crime. Standing up to bullies is not assault. And no one, regardless of their badge, their uniform, their family history, or their political connections, is above accountability. She returns to her seat. The prosecution wants you to believe that I was the aggressor, that Officer Thornwell was simply maintaining order, that my military training obligated me to accept violence without response. But you saw the video. You heard the recordings. You listened to Officer Calloway describe premeditated assault planned the night before. You watched Officer Thornwell confess on this witness stand that he knew exactly what he was doing. The evidence is clear. The choice is simple. Justice or complicity. She sits down. Judge Crane instructs the jury on the law. Self-defense requires reasonable belief of imminent harm and proportional response. The jury must consider all evidence presented. They must evaluate credibility of witnesses. They must reach a unanimous verdict. The 12 citizens file out at 4:17 p.m. They return at 6:58 p.m. 2 hours and 41 minutes. The fastest federal assault case verdict in the district's recorded history. The foreman stands, a middle-aged black woman who has watched every moment of this trial with unwavering attention. On the charge of assault and battery on a police officer, we find the defendant not guilty. The gallery explodes. Cheers. Sobs. A few angry shouts from Thornwell supporters quickly drowned out. On the charge of assault on a federal employee, we find the defendant not guilty. Reverie remains seated, composed, but tears glisten in her eyes. On the charge of disturbing the peace in a federal courthouse, we find the defendant not guilty. Judge Crane pounds her gavel, but she is smiling. Order. Order in the courtroom. She waits for the noise to subside before turning to the defense table. Ms. Castellane, you are free to go. This court finds no merit in the charges brought against you. Thornwell sits frozen in the gallery. His lawyer whispers urgently in his ear, but Thornwell does not respond. He stares at Reverie with an expression that mingles hatred with something that might be the first glimmers of genuine fear. Because he finally understands. He was never the hunter. He was always the prey. And the trap has finally closed. Want to be the person who changes unjust systems from the inside? Purdue University Global's criminal justice program prepares you for careers in law enforcement reform, legal advocacy, and policy change. 100% online, affordable tuition, and real-world faculty who've been in the trenches. Don't just watch change happen. Lead it. Apply now at purdueglobal.edu/justice and transform your passion into power. The courthouse steps have never seen a crowd this size. Reverie emerges into late afternoon sunlight that feels like resurrection. Supporters surge forward, held back by barriers that seem inadequate against their enthusiasm. Signs wave. Cameras flash. Her name echoes off marble walls that have witnessed 2 centuries of American justice. Congresswoman Castellane. Congresswoman Castellane. Over here. A question, please. She approaches the microphone stand that has been hastily erected. The same spot where Judson Blackwell announced charges against her just weeks ago. The same spot where he promised to hold her accountable for military-level violence. She takes a moment to survey the scene. Protesters who demanded her imprisonment now stand silent, their signs drooping. Supporters who feared she would spend years in prison weep openly. Reporters who predicted her political destruction now scramble to reframe narratives that collapsed in real time. Today proves that no one is above the law, she begins. Her voice carries clearly across the steps, across the crowd, across the cameras that will broadcast her words to millions. And no one is below its protection. She pauses. Officer Thornwell believed he could assault me without consequences because of what I look like, because of who he assumed I was. He believed that 3 generations of badge-protected immunity gave him the right to put me in my place. Her eyes find a camera and hold it. He was wrong. The crowd roars approval. But I want to be clear about something. Her raised hand quiets them. This verdict is not complete victory. This verdict is a beginning. 22 other officers remain in positions of power. Deputy Chief Larkin Graves retired with full pension before charges could be filed. Deputy Director Quinlan Marsh has been reassigned, but not disciplined. And the systems that protected Officer Thornwell for 16 years remain largely intact. She lets that reality settle over the celebration. We have won a battle. We have not won the war. The work continues. The fight continues. And I promise every person who has been victimized by those who swear to protect and serve, I will not stop until the job is finished. Questions erupt from the press corps. Congresswoman, what are your next steps? Congresswoman, will you seek charges against Deputy Chief Graves? Congresswoman, do you plan to continue the federal investigation? She answers each with the same measured composure that has defined her throughout this ordeal. Yes, the investigation continues. She cannot comment on specific individuals who may face charges. Yes, she intends to reintroduce the Hayes-Castellane Accountability Act in the next congressional session. One final question cuts through the noise. Congresswoman Castellane, Officer Thornwell accused you of setting him up, of manipulating the situation to make him lose control. How do you respond? Reverie considers the question for a long moment. Officer Thornwell made his own choices. He chose to ignore briefing materials that would have told him who I was. He chose to let his prejudices blind him to the danger he was walking into. He chose to plan an assault the night before. He chose to practice the slap in a mirror that morning. He chose to abandon his post and attack me in front of 25 cameras. She pauses. I did not make him a racist. I did not make him violent. I did not make him corrupt. I simply created conditions where he could not hide what he already was. She steps back from the microphone. Thank you all. The work continues. The aftermath unfolds over weeks that feel like months. Thornwell's criminal trial begins 6 weeks later. The charges are federal civil rights violations under 18 U.S.C. Section 242, deprivation of rights under color of law, potential sentence of 10 years. The prosecution's case is overwhelming. The same evidence that exonerated Reverie now damns Thornwell beyond any reasonable doubt. Video of the assault, audio of racist statements, testimony from Officer Calloway, documentation of 47 complaints and 12 sustained disciplinary actions. His defense attorney argues temporary insanity brought on by professional stress. The jury does not believe it. They deliberate for 4 hours before returning a guilty verdict on all counts. Sentencing is scheduled for 3 months later. Legal experts predict somewhere between 5 and 8 years. The Metropolitan Police Department moves quickly to distance itself from the scandal. Thornwell is formally terminated, his pension forfeited, his name added to a national database of decertified officers. But the institutional response falls far short of the systemic change Reverie fought for. Deputy Chief Larkin Graves announces early retirement 2 days after the verdict. He receives full pension benefits. No criminal charges are filed. His statement expresses gratitude for 25 years of service and optimism about spending more time with his grandchildren. No mention of his role in enabling Thornwell's violence. No acknowledgement of his careful but effective instruction. No accountability whatsoever. Deputy Director Quinlan Marsh is reassigned to the Records Department, a lateral move that technically constitutes neither promotion nor demotion. His wife remains niece to Police Union President Harold Vance. His access to sensitive files remains intact. His ability to suppress evidence remains unchallenged. No criminal investigation. No disciplinary hearing. No consequences beyond a change of office location. Sable Kensington issues a statement praising the justice system for working as intended while simultaneously calling for healing and reconciliation. She remains chair of the City Police Board. Her influence over police policy remains absolute. Her careful but effective sabotage of reform efforts continues unabated. The federal investigation expands, but slowly. FBI resources are limited. Political pressure is intense. 22 of the 23 officers identified in Reverie's documents remain on active duty, their misconduct buried under layers of bureaucratic protection. Some statistics improve. Excessive force complaints drop 34% in units under direct federal monitor observation. Body camera compliance rises to 97%. Settlement payments decrease slightly, but these improvements cluster in areas where oversight is strongest. In precincts beyond the monitor's reach, patterns continue unchanged. The culture that created Thornwell remains largely intact. Reverie watches these developments with a mixture of satisfaction and frustration. She won her case. She exposed the network. She survived the system's attempt to destroy her, but the system itself grinds on. This incredible story proves that courage and preparation can overcome even the most powerful opponents. If you loved watching justice prevail against a corrupt system, our next video features another underdog whose hidden identity left an entire courtroom speechless. Subscribe now so you don't miss it. 6 months after the verdict, Reverie sits alone in her congressional office. The hour is late. The building is quiet. Outside her window, the Capitol dome glows against the night sky, illuminated by floodlights that make it visible from miles away. She reviews documents spread across her desk. Statistical analyses showing where reforms are working and where they are failing. Personnel files of officers who remain under investigation. Budget projections for expanded federal oversight that faces steep opposition in committee. The Hayes-Castellane Accountability Act remains stalled. Mandatory body cameras for all federal law enforcement. Independent oversight boards with subpoena power. Automatic review for officers with pattern complaints. Civilian participation in disciplinary proceedings. Every provision faces fierce resistance. Police unions call it an attack on officer safety. Conservative lawmakers call it federal overreach. Even moderate Democrats express concerns about implementation costs and potential unintended consequences. The bill has been in committee for 4 months. It may never reach the floor. Thessaly enters without knocking. She carries a folder marked with classification stamps that make Reverie sit up straighter. This just came through secure channel. Reverie takes the folder, opens it, reads the first page. Her expression does not change, but something hardens behind her eyes. The document is an FBI internal memorandum. Subject line reads, Investigation Scope Expansion. Preliminary analysis indicates involvement extends beyond municipal law enforcement, the memo states. Financial irregularities suggest coordination with political actors at state and possibly federal level. Additional subjects identified pending further investigation. Attached is a list of names. Several are redacted. Black bars cover identifying information that remains classified even at this clearance level. But one name is visible. A congressman. A member of the same body where Reverie serves. Someone who voted against police reform legislation. Someone who has been quietly supporting the police union's efforts to derail the Hayes-Castellane Act. She reads the name 3 times to make sure she understands what she is seeing. How deep does this go? Thessaly shakes her head. We do not know yet. The FBI is being careful. Whoever is involved has serious connections, the kind of connections that can make investigations disappear. Reverie sets down the document, stares at the Capitol dome through her window. For 2 years, she has been fighting what she believed was a local problem. Corrupt cops in one department, bad actors protected by weak oversight, the kind of institutional failure that reform could address. But this document suggests something far more disturbing. A network that extends beyond badges and precincts. A conspiracy that reaches into the halls where laws are made. Protection that operates not just at the street level, but at the highest echelons of political power. She has opened a door, and she has no idea what waits on the other side. Her phone buzzes. Unknown number. She normally ignores such calls, but something makes her answer. No voice on the other end. Just silence that stretches for 5 seconds. 10 seconds. 15. Then a text message appears. You opened a door that should have stayed closed. We are watching. The call disconnects. Reverie stares at the screen. The message disappears as she watches, deleted remotely by whoever sent it. Thessaly, did you see that? See what? The text. From the blocked number. Your phone shows no incoming messages. Reverie checks. Her chief of staff is right. The call log shows nothing. The message thread is empty. No evidence that anything happened at all. They are watching. Who are they? How deep does their reach extend? What happens to people who keep digging after receiving warnings like this? She has spent 2 years learning how systems protect their own, how evidence disappears, how witnesses are discredited, how investigations are quietly shut down before they can threaten the powerful. Now she is about to learn how those same systems respond when someone refuses to stop. Thessaly studies her with concern. Reverie, maybe we should… No. The word comes out harder than intended. Reverie softens her tone. We do not stop. We never stop. That is the whole point. That is what makes us different from them. She pulls her laptop forward, opens a new document, begins typing a formal request for expanded FBI cooperation. Whatever door she opened, she intends to walk through it. Whatever is watching, she intends to face it. The fight continues. The weeks that follow bring escalating pressure from directions Reverie never anticipated. Campaign donations dry up. Longtime supporters suddenly become unavailable. Political allies who praised her courage after the verdict now avoid her calls. The message is clear without ever being spoken. Stop digging. Accept partial victory. Move on. She refuses. The Hayes-Castellane Act gains unexpected momentum when 3 moderate Republicans break ranks to support it. Their stated reason is respect for rule of law and officer accountability. Their actual motivation, Reverie suspects, involves calculations about upcoming elections and shifting public opinion. Whatever their reasons, the votes are real. The bill advances to full committee markup. Police unions respond with unprecedented lobbying efforts. Television ads blanket swing districts featuring tearful officers describing the dangers they face daily. Opinion pieces appear in major newspapers questioning whether federal oversight represents government overreach. Sable Kensington coordinates much of this opposition from her position on the city police board. She never attacks Reverie directly, never mentions her by name, simply advocates for officer welfare and community partnership and all the other phrases that sound reasonable while meaning nothing. Her strategy is elegant in its cruelty. She positions herself as the voice of moderation while systematically undermining every reform that might create real change. Reverie watches this theater with growing frustration. She has evidence of Kensington's coordination with the network, emails that show her communicating with Marsh before the trial, meeting logs that place her at gatherings with officers under investigation. But nothing rises to the level of criminal conduct. Nothing that would justify formal charges. Kensington is too smart, too careful, too experienced in the art of corrupt governance. She operates in the gray spaces where law and ethics diverge, where you can destroy lives without breaking statutes, where you can protect monsters without leaving fingerprints. The 10 minutes of missing body cam footage remains unrecovered. Quinlan Marsh claims the files were permanently corrupted. IT specialists disagree. The data exists somewhere in the department's servers, protected by passwords and permissions that require higher authorization than any current investigation possesses. Reverie files Freedom of Information requests. They are denied on grounds of ongoing investigation. She files appeals. They disappear into bureaucratic limbo. She subpoenas records through her congressional authority. The department produces thousands of pages of irrelevant documents while claiming the specific files she needs cannot be located. It is obstruction that stops just short of illegality, delay that never quite becomes denial, the death of accountability by 1,000 procedural cuts. But not everyone in the system has abandoned their conscience. Officer Neve Calloway reaches out through intermediaries. She has been transferred to a remote precinct. Officially, it is a lateral move. Unofficially, it is punishment for testimony that helped convict Thornwell. Her career in law enforcement is effectively over. No promotion will ever come. No commendation will ever be issued. She has been marked as a traitor by the very institution she joined to serve. But she keeps digging. I have a source. She tells Reverie during a covert meeting in a park far from police surveillance. Someone in IT. Someone who knows where the missing footage is stored. Can you get it? Maybe. But it will take time. And if I am caught, Reverie understands. You have already sacrificed enough. I cannot ask you to risk more. Calloway shakes her head. You did not ask. I am offering. She pauses. There is something else. Something I heard before I was transferred. What? The footage. The 10 minutes they are hiding. It does not just show Thornwell practicing. It shows him receiving instructions. Instructions from whom? Calloway looks around nervously. Someone whose voice should not have been in that hallway. Someone who does not wear a badge. Reverie's blood runs cold. A politician? I do not know. I did not hear the conversation directly, but the officer who told me, she was scared. Truly scared. Like she had seen something that could get people killed. The implications spiral outward like cracks in glass. If political actors were directly coordinating with Thornwell before the assault, this is no longer a story about police corruption. This is a story about conspiracy at the highest levels. About power structures willing to use violence against elected officials who threaten their interests. About a system that would rather destroy democracy than submit to accountability. Reverie returns to her office that night with a new understanding of the stakes. She is not fighting one department's culture of abuse. She is fighting an ecosystem of corruption that spans law enforcement, judiciary, politics, and probably more. An ecosystem that has survived for decades by destroying anyone who gets too close to its roots. She should be afraid. Any rational person would be afraid. Instead, she feels something that surprises her. Something that feels almost like relief. Now she knows what she is dealing with. Now she can plan accordingly. 3 months pass. The Hayes-Castellane Act advances through committee with amendments that water down its strongest provisions. Mandatory body cameras become recommended guidelines. Independent oversight boards become advisory committees. Automatic review for pattern complaints becomes discretionary assessment. Reverie fights for every provision, wins some battles, loses others, accepts compromises that make her sick but represent the best outcomes achievable in the current political climate. The bill passes the House 231 to 198, largely along party lines, but with enough crossover votes to suggest genuine bipartisan concern about police accountability. The Senate is harder. 53 votes needed for passage, 47 virtually guaranteed. 6 more required from senators who have received substantial donations from police unions and their affiliated political action committees. Reverie spends weeks lobbying, meeting with wavering senators, presenting evidence, making arguments, calling in favors accumulated over years of political relationship building. She secures 51 votes, then 52. The 53rd proves elusive. Senator Harlan Pierce of Virginia holds the deciding vote. Moderate Republican, former prosecutor, generally supportive of law enforcement but troubled by documented abuses. He meets with Reverie in his office on a Tuesday afternoon. I want to support this bill, he tells her. I believe in accountability. I believe in transparency. I believe officers who violate their oaths should face consequences. But my donors are not happy. My base is not happy. If I vote yes, I face a primary challenge from my right. If I vote no, I face a general election opponent who will use this vote against me. Reverie nods. She has heard variations of this calculation from every undecided senator. The math of political survival trumping the substance of actual governance. What would it take to get your vote? Pierce considers. If I could point to something concrete, something that shows this bill will actually reduce violence rather than just punishing officers. Data from pilot programs. Success stories from departments that implemented similar reforms voluntarily. We have that data. I can have a full briefing prepared within 48 hours. Pierce shakes his head. I have seen the data. Numbers do not move my constituents. They need stories. They need faces. They need to understand why this matters in human terms. Reverie understands. He is asking for something she cannot manufacture. Authentic testimony from people whose lives have been transformed by the kind of reforms this bill would mandate. She has those stories, dozens of them, but convincing Senator Pierce's conservative constituents to care about black victims of police violence is a challenge that statistics and logic cannot address. I will see what I can do, she promises, but she leaves his office knowing the truth. She might not be able to secure that 53rd vote. The bill might die in the Senate. 2 years of work, destroyed career, narrowly avoided prison, and the best she can achieve is partial reform that will be systematically undermined by the same forces that created the problem. It is not enough. It will never be enough. But she keeps fighting anyway. The breakthrough comes from an unexpected direction. Officer Neve Calloway delivers on her promise. The missing body cam footage arrives via encrypted file transfer on a Thursday evening. 10 minutes and 37 seconds of video that the department has spent months claiming was corrupted beyond recovery. Reverie watches it alone in her office. The footage is crystal clear. Thornwell stands in the courthouse hallway, adjusting his uniform. He practices the slapping motion 3 times, getting the angle right, testing how much force he can generate without losing his balance. Then someone approaches. The camera captures a partial profile. Male, well-dressed. Definitely not a police officer. The audio quality is poor. Ambient noise obscures most of the conversation. But certain phrases come through clearly. Make it look spontaneous. Cannot have federal investigation proceed. Message needs to be sent. And then, most damning of all, the money will be in your account by Monday. Just make sure she knows her place. Thornwell nods, smiles. The smile of a man who has been given permission. The smile of a man who believes he is protected. The man in the suit walks away. The camera captures more of his face as he turns. Reverie freezes the frame. She knows that face. She has seen it across committee tables, in congressional hallways, at fundraisers and policy briefings and all the other gatherings where Washington's powerful brush shoulders and make deals. Congressman Raymond Holt, 12-term representative from a district with heavy police union support, ranking member on the House Judiciary Committee, one of the most vocal opponents of the Hayes-Castellane Act. A sitting member of Congress paid a police officer to assault her. Reverie sits very still for a long time. The implications are staggering. This is not just corruption. This is not just conspiracy. This is an attack on the democratic process itself. An elected official using violence to silence another elected official who threatened his political interests. This is the kind of thing that ends careers, that results in federal prosecution, that fundamentally reshapes how Americans understand their government. If she releases this footage, everything changes. If she releases this footage, she also becomes the biggest target in American politics. Everyone who benefited from the network she has been exposing will have reason to destroy her. Everyone who looked the other way will have reason to ensure her silence. The text message echoes in her memory. You opened a door that should have stayed closed. We are watching. They were watching. They are still watching. And now she has evidence that could bring down not just corrupt cops, but the politicians who command them. Thessaly finds her sitting in darkness an hour later. Reverie. I saw the footage. Her chief of staff's voice is barely above a whisper. Her face is pale even in the dim light. This changes everything. Reverie nods slowly. Yes, it does. What do we do? The question hangs in the air. So many possible answers. So many possible consequences. Reverie could take the footage to the FBI. Let federal law enforcement handle it. Protect herself from accusations of political motivation. But she knows how that plays out. The FBI opens an investigation. Months pass. Evidence disappears. Witnesses recant. Eventually, a quiet announcement that insufficient evidence exists to proceed. The system protects its own. She could leak the footage to the press. Let journalists do the work. Remove herself from the direct line of fire. But she knows how that plays out too. The footage becomes a political football. Authenticity is questioned. Context is debated. Partisan narratives consume whatever truth the video contains. The system survives. Or she could do what she has done from the beginning. Stand up. Fight back. Use every tool at her disposal to force accountability even when the system is designed to prevent exactly that. Schedule a press conference for tomorrow morning, she tells Thessaly. Contact every news outlet, every journalist who has covered this story. every editor who has shown willingness to pursue uncomfortable truths. Thessaly hesitates. Reverie. Once you do this, you cannot take it back. You will have enemies you cannot imagine. People with resources and reach that, I know. Reverie stands, walks to the window, looks out at the Capitol dome glowing against the darkness. I know exactly what I am doing. I know exactly what it will cost. I have known since the moment I decided to let Thornwell put himself on camera assaulting me rather than revealing my identity and stopping the hearing before the evidence could be presented. She turns to face her chief of staff. Everything that has happened since that day has been building toward this moment. The trial, the verdict, the investigation, the partial reforms, the blocked legislation. All of it was preparation for the real fight. The fight that begins tomorrow. Thessaly studies her for a long moment, then nods. I will make the calls. The press conference takes place on the Capitol steps at 9 a.m. Every major network is present. Every newspaper of record has sent reporters. Social media is already buzzing with speculation about what Congresswoman Castellane might reveal. Reverie approaches the podium wearing her Bronze Star pin, the one she never wears publicly, the one that reminds her who she was before politics taught her to hide her strength. Good morning. Her voice carries across the crowd with the same measured authority that won over a jury 6 months ago. I have spent 2 years investigating systematic civil rights violations within law enforcement. I have exposed networks of corruption that resulted in criminal convictions. I have survived an assault by a police officer who believed he could silence me with violence. She pauses. Today, I am going to show you why he believed that. The footage plays on screens erected behind her. 10 minutes and 37 seconds of video that the department claimed was corrupted, that Internal Affairs claimed could not be recovered, that the entire machinery of institutional protection claimed had been lost forever. Thornwell practicing the slap, the man in the suit approaching, the conversation about money and messages and making sure she knows her place, the frozen frame of Congressman Raymond Holt's face. The crowd of reporters erupts. Congresswoman, are you saying that a sitting member of Congress paid Officer Thornwell to assault you? Congresswoman, have you shared this evidence with law enforcement? Congresswoman, what do you expect to happen now? Reverie raises her hand for silence. I am saying that the evidence speaks for itself. I am saying that this footage, which multiple official sources claimed was permanently lost, proves that the assault against me was not random violence by one rogue officer. It was a coordinated attack designed to prevent federal investigation of corruption that extends far beyond any single police department. She lets that sink in. Congressman Holt has been one of the most vocal opponents of the Hayes-Castellane Accountability Act. He has received hundreds of thousands of dollars in donations from police unions and their affiliated political action committees. He sits on committees with oversight authority over the very institutions this legislation would reform. And now we know why he has fought so hard to stop it. The questions continue for 45 minutes. Reverie answers each with the same measured precision. Yes, she has provided the footage to the FBI. Yes, she expects formal investigation. Yes, she understands the implications. Yes, she is prepared for whatever comes next. The final question comes from a veteran reporter near the back of the crowd. Congresswoman Castellane, you have made very powerful enemies today. There are people who will do anything to stop what you have started. Are you afraid? Reverie considers the question. 6 months ago, I stood in a federal courtroom and let a man twice my size slap me across the face on camera. I did that because I knew my evidence was strong enough to survive whatever came next. I knew my training was sufficient to protect myself. And I knew that sometimes the best way to expose corruption is to let it show its true face. She looks directly into the camera. I am not afraid. I have been preparing for this fight my entire adult life. I survived combat in Afghanistan. I prosecuted war criminals who would have killed me without a second thought. I faced down a system designed to destroy me and walked out of that courtroom a free woman. Her voice drops. Whatever comes next, I am ready. Whatever doors I have opened, I intend to walk through them. And to anyone watching who thinks they can silence me with threats or violence or political pressure, I have a message. She straightens her Bronze Star pin. You tried that already. It did not work. The aftermath unfolds faster than anyone anticipated. Congressman Raymond Holt issues a statement within 2 hours calling the footage doctored and the accusations politically motivated. His lawyers threaten defamation suits. His allies in Congress demand investigations into how classified footage was obtained and leaked. None of it matters. The FBI had already been investigating Holt based on other evidence. The footage provides confirmation of what they suspected. Within 72 hours, federal agents execute search warrants on his congressional office, his home, and his campaign headquarters. They find bank records showing payments to offshore accounts controlled by Thornwell. They find communications with other politicians coordinating opposition to police reform. They find evidence of a network far larger than anyone outside the investigation imagined. Holt is arrested on a Wednesday morning. Perp walked in front of cameras that broadcast his humiliation to a nation that cannot quite believe what it is seeing. A sitting congressman in handcuffs, charged with conspiracy to commit assault, bribery, and obstruction of justice. He is the first domino. Others follow. Deputy Director Quinlan Marsh is arrested the same day. The charges include destruction of evidence, conspiracy, and civil rights violations. His wife's connection to the police union president suddenly looks less like coincidence and more like design. Deputy Chief Larkin Graves is pulled from his retirement 3 states away. His pension is frozen pending investigation. His careful but effective instruction to Thornwell now reads as direction from a superior officer coordinating assault on a federal official. Sable Kensington resigns from the police board before investigators can reach her. She issues no statement, makes no appearances, simply disappears from public life as completely as if she had never existed. Her replacement is appointed by a mayor suddenly very interested in demonstrating commitment to reform. The Hayes-Castellane Accountability Act passes the Senate 54-46. 3 votes more than needed. Senators who had been wavering suddenly find courage when the alternative is being seen as complicit in conspiracy against a decorated veteran and sitting congresswoman. The president signs it in a Rose Garden ceremony with Reverie standing at his side. This legislation represents the most significant reform of American policing in a generation, he announces to assembled media. It would not exist without the courage of Congresswoman Castellane, who risked everything to expose corruption that others wanted to remain hidden. Reverie accepts the pen he used to sign the bill. She does not smile, does not celebrate. Her expression remains focused on work that remains unfinished, because she knows this is not the end. The legislation will face implementation challenges. Courts will hear constitutional challenges. Opponents will seek workarounds and exceptions and all the other tools that powerful interests use to evade accountability. The network she exposed was damaged but not destroyed. 22 officers remain under investigation. Dozens of politicians remain unexposed. Countless bureaucrats who enabled corruption remain in positions where they can enable more. The system is wounded. The system is not dead. And somewhere in the shadows, people are already planning how to strike back. 1 year later, Reverie stands at Arlington National Cemetery, visiting graves of service members she served with in Afghanistan, the ones who did not make it home, the ones whose sacrifices made everything she has accomplished possible. She comes here often, when the political battles become too exhausting, when the progress seems too slow, when she needs to remember why she started this fight and why she cannot stop. Her security detail maintains respectful distance. They have been with her constantly since the Holt arrest. Death threats arrived daily for months. Someone firebombed a car parked outside her district office. A man with a gun was arrested outside her apartment building, claiming he had been hired to send a message. She survived all of it, just as she survived everything else. But survival is not the same as victory, and victory is not the same as completion. The investigation continues. New connections emerge weekly. The network Holt coordinated turns out to be one node in a larger system that spans multiple states and reaches into agencies no one suspected. Some of it will never be exposed. Some of the protected will never face consequences. Some of the guilty will die in their beds surrounded by family members who believed they were good people. That is the nature of the fight she has chosen. You do not win completely. You do not fix everything. You make incremental progress against forces that have centuries of practice in maintaining their power. But you keep fighting anyway, because the alternative is surrender. And surrender is not something she was trained to do. Her phone vibrates. Thessaly. Turn on the news. Reverie pulls up a live stream on her phone. The Chiron reads breaking. FBI announces major expansion of corruption investigation. The press conference is already underway. FBI director standing at a podium covered with official seals. Today we are announcing charges against 17 additional individuals in connection with the ongoing investigation into civil rights violations and political corruption. These charges represent the largest single expansion of this investigation to date and reflect our commitment to following the evidence wherever it leads. The list of names scrolls across the screen. Police officers, prosecutors, judges, city officials, 2 more members of Congress. Reverie watches with an expression that reveals nothing. Progress, not victory, not completion, but progress. The fight continues. She straightens her Bronze Star pin and walks back toward her waiting vehicle. There is work to do. Late that night, Reverie sits alone in her congressional office. The building is empty. The halls are silent. Outside her window, the Capitol dome glows against darkness just as it did on the night she first learned how deep this conspiracy ran. She reviews documents spread across her desk. The new indictments, the expanded investigation, the legislative priorities for the coming session. There is always more to do, always another layer to peel back, always another protected perpetrator to expose. A folder catches her attention, one she has not opened in months. The original case file from her investigation, the evidence that started everything. She flips through pages yellowed with age, photographs of victims, transcripts of testimony, statistical analyses that first revealed the pattern she spent 2 years documenting. At the bottom of the folder is a photograph she has almost forgotten. Her father, Senator Thomas Castelein, who served 3 terms before retiring to spend more time with family, who taught her that public service was not about power but about responsibility, who died of cancer 2 years before she was elected to Congress, never knowing that his daughter would continue his work in ways neither of them could have imagined. She touches the photograph gently. "I hope I made you proud." The words are whispered to an empty room, but somehow they feel heard. Her phone buzzes. Unknown number. She answers without hesitation. Whatever threat or warning awaits, she has faced worse. But the voice on the other end is not threatening. "Congresswoman Castelein, my name is Agent Marlo Sinclair, FBI Counterintelligence Division. We need to talk about something we found in Congressman Holt's files, something that goes beyond what has been publicly disclosed." Reverie listens. When the call ends 20 minutes later, she sits very still for a long time. The investigation she started has uncovered something larger than political corruption, something larger than police misconduct, something that touches national security in ways she never anticipated. Another door has opened. Another fight awaits. She thinks about her father, about the service members buried at Arlington, about every person who sacrificed so that people like her could stand up against systems designed to crush them. She thinks about Thornwell serving his sentence in federal prison, about Holt awaiting trial on charges that will likely result in decades behind bars, about Kensington and Marsh and Graves and all the others who believed they were untouchable. She thinks about Officer Neve Calloway, who destroyed her career to tell the truth, about Marcus Webb, whose wrongful conviction started her down this path, about the thousands of unnamed victims whose suffering made this fight necessary. She thinks about what it means to keep going when the fight never ends, when every victory reveals new battles, when the forces you oppose have unlimited resources and centuries of practice. And she reaches a conclusion she has reached many times before. You keep fighting anyway, because that is what warriors do, because that is what her father taught her, because that is who she is. She opens her laptop, begins typing notes for her meeting with Agent Sinclair, prepares for whatever comes next. Outside her window, the Capitol dome continues to glow, a symbol of democracy that has survived centuries of challenges, a symbol that will survive this one too, if people like her keep fighting. The final document arrives 3 days later. It is delivered by courier with security clearances Reverie did not know existed. The envelope bears classification markings that make her chief of staff step out of the room while she reads. Inside is a single page, a list of names. Some she recognizes, some she does not, all connected by a web of financial transactions, communications intercepts, and intelligence assessments that span decades. At the bottom of the page, a handwritten note from someone whose identity is redacted. "Congratulations, Congresswoman. You found the tip of the iceberg. Here is the rest." Reverie studies the list for a long time. Some of these people are retired, some are dead. Some hold positions of extraordinary power and influence that make Congressman Holt look like a minor player. Exposing them will take years, maybe decades, maybe longer than she has left in public service. But she thinks about what she has already accomplished. A guilty verdict that seemed impossible. Legislation that transforms American policing. A criminal conspiracy brought to light when every institution tried to bury it. She thinks about the 3 seconds that changed everything. The slap. The response. The moment when a man who believed he could assault her with impunity learned how wrong he was. She has come so far since that morning in courtroom 4B, and the journey is just beginning. She picks up her phone, calls Thessaly. "Clear my schedule for the next 2 weeks. We have work to do." She opens a new folder, labels it with today's date, and begins to plan her next move. The Capitol dome glows outside her window. The fight continues. It always will. And she would not have it any other way, because she is Reverie Castellane, Congresswoman, veteran, warrior, and she never stops, never surrenders, never backs down. That is who she is. That is who she has always been. That is who she will remain until the job is done, however long it takes, whatever it costs. The end, or rather, the beginning.